I'm joined by John Giles, and we're going to talk about Manchester United, the richest club in the world, a club with a wonderful tradition of the very best football. Great men have been there as managers, Matt Busby, of course, and Sir Alex Ferguson, but also great players. And indeed, John was there for 6 or 7 years, won an FA Cup medal, but the club was at a low ebb, and he decided to jump ship and go to Leeds United.
They decided for me to jump ship as well. And it was mutual.
John went on, of course, as we all know, to have one of the greatest careers in the history of the English game. But like all of us, what's happening at Manchester United is of immense interest. John, I think you'd agree, would you, that the club, it's a great club with a great history, and what's going on there is always fascinating.
Yeah. Has been for a number of years, Eamon, as we know. They've had their downside, as we know, after Munich disaster. Manchester United, at the time I won the Cup, you mentioned there, weren't a good team, really. No. I mean, obviously they picked up after that. But they had their low times, then they were relegated, then Ferguson came in and, of course, did what he did. Now, it's another low ebb, which happens to great clubs. But I think when it happens to the likes of Manchester United, I think there's more interest in that than certainly most other clubs.
Yeah, and if we pick up the present chapter in the club's history at the point where Alex Ferguson left, and he obviously there was going to be a big hole, as there was indeed when Busby leaves, or when any great coach leaves a club, particularly an English club. There is a vacuum that has to be filled. Now, they attempted, I think Ferguson was given a lot of influence in the appointment. At this stage, the Glazer family were the owners, and he recommended David Moyes, who was a Scot also. And I think, well, you know David Moyes quite well, and you certainly know one of the people who worked with David at Everton, Jimmy Lumsden, I think. Moyes was a good choice in many ways. He had a good record as a coach, didn't he?
Well, he had a great record at Everton. He was very good. He was a solid individual. And it was never going to be an easy job for anybody to come in and take over from Alex Ferguson. And you'd want to be on the inside to know why. I'm only looking from the outside. To be honest, I think he tried to accommodate the players that were already there.
Yes.
In too much. I think it needed a ruthless hand to when he went in. And I think he thought, because like Rio Ferdinand, for example, criticised him publicly.
Yes.
And he didn't get rid of him.
Right.
You know, and there was a lot of talk about, and always is a club like Manchester United, from ex-players, players who've been with Ferguson a long time, that Moyes had a very, very difficult job. And I think it needed, again, a young Alex Ferguson to come in at that time to sort out what needed to be sorted out. Now, I'm only looking from the outside. I think, to be honest, he was too soft with them.
Yeah, one of the things that happened too, he bought one player, Fellaini. And at this stage, Ed Woodward, who is now the chief executive, at this stage, Woodward was a powerful figure in the club. And Fellaini had been at Everton with David Moyes. He wasn't what you'd call a Manchester United player. He was a grafter, a digger, very sort of admirable professional in many ways. But they went in, they botched that transfer because Fellaini had a release clause in his contract, I think 24 million. They went and paid 27 million the week before the release clause was due to kick in. And that was kind of botched. But that was the first signing. But the distinct impression you got was that the kind of money they needed to spend at that stage, because Wayne Rooney was coming to the end, and there were players that were coming to the end. Michael Carrick, for example, wasn't available to David Moyes. He wasn't able to make the call and get the money. That was my impression.
Yeah, it's difficult to know, Eamon. First of all, I think he needed time. Let's put it that way, straight away. I mean, as we know, he was sacked after
7 months.
7 months. I think that was unfair. I think they should have given that season and the start of the next season to sort out what needed to be sorted out and get in what he needed to get in. Yeah. I don't think he got that opportunity at all. I think because they just won the league, and I think people expected him, especially at the club, well, they're going to go on and win the league again.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out, isn't it, that Ferguson won the league in his last season.
Yeah, and so he's taken over that particular job. But there was players there who were there for a good few years, and this is the way Ferguson worked. And I think
Van Persie would be a good example as well. You wouldn't want to inherit him, would you?
Well, he was another. Yeah. There was a few. There was quite a few there, Eamon, that needed right out. And I don't think Moyes, I think, was too big for him.
Yes.
To do what needed to be done. I'd say if you asked him now, if he went back in and said, "Oh yeah, I would definitely," there would have been 6 or 7 guys I would have got out of that club at that particular time, and he didn't. I think he tried to appease them instead of a young Ferguson or a Conte going in and say, "What?"
Or even Mourinho, because
at that time
there was talk of Mourinho. At that time, and there had been talk of Mourinho for a few years beforehand. Yes. One of the most significant interventions was Bobby Charlton. Bobby, hugely respected. He's on the board, and he publicly said, Jose Mourinho is not a Manchester United manager, which was a very significant intervention at the time that Bobby made it.
Yeah, well, definitely Bobby would have been significant at that time, but Ferguson was the most significant.
Yes.
I think he was given full authority to pick his man, and he went for Moyes.
And by all, we can't tell from where we sit, but by all accounts, when Moyes struggled, as you would do, and don't forget Alex Ferguson struggled for 2.5 to almost 3 years when he first went there. He didn't appear to say to defend Moyes. If he did, he didn't do it very successfully.
Who Alex? Yeah, I'd say after the appointment, Eamon, he wouldn't then have had the authority to interfere after that. What I think of clubs anyway, I don't know what you think of them. Like Ferguson was yesterday's man as soon as he stopped. Now, I think he was allowed to do that. And I'd say that maybe reluctantly by the owners and Woodward.
Yes.
Right. Now, when it didn't work, because they didn't give him much time, it was that's Alex out.
And of course the Glazers have always been very conscious that Ferguson had their back. If Ferguson was happy, the fans were happy.
Yeah.
But if Ferguson was made unhappy by anything and turned on the Glazers, that was very bad news at that stage.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, these are the owners. And as good as Ferguson was to them over the years, not good, great, he's still an employee.
Yeah.
No matter what happens in football, you're still an employee. And Ferguson had the character to do what needed to be done. And of course, they let him get on because he was successful year in, year out, just won the league. And now, okay, Alex, what do you want to do? Or what do you think we should do?
Yeah.
Maybe even reluctantly, because Woodward might say, I know what needs to be done. We'll get our own man in, whatever the talk was. So there might have been a reluctance for Ferguson to get the man that he wanted in, because they weren't very patient with him. And I think once that happened, Eamon, and Moyes was considered a failure, then I think Alex Ferguson influence was gone.
And now we come to Louis van Gaal, who came in, and they, interestingly enough, they went a curious way about it. I mean, they were kind of, as someone in the Sunday Times said at the weekend, they went Real Madrid light. In other words, they signed Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Angel Di Maria, the Argentinian, who I think is a very, very good player. They signed him from Real Madrid. Schweinsteiger. And then Falcao. Falcao had 2 very bad injuries, but they still took a chance on him. But it was kind of, Schweinsteiger was finished when Van Gaal went and got him.
I mean, the important point is what you're saying is they signed him.
Yes.
Who signed him?
Yes.
That's the important thing. I don't think Van Gaal had any say in any of those signings.
Really?
I think he was busy with the World Cup. He might have given them the go-ahead, but he didn't. Like, I never ever thought that Van Gaal was in charge of it in a way that you would have expected him to be.
Yeah.
I think he, for whatever reason, he went along with whatever, or maybe he was told this is the conditions that you're taking the job under, that this is what we're going to do. Because most clubs and owners actually want to do that, Eamon.
Yeah.
They don't like giving the authority to a manager.
No.
They just don't like it, because these are businessmen, and you're talking about millions, hundreds of millions of pounds here. They don't like giving it to somebody who is a football man. Now, Ferguson earned it with what he did, you know. But if you look back on Ferguson, Ferguson actually never spent that much money.
No,
because he brought the young lads in and continues to be successful. Made him millions and millions every year. Here's a new man coming in, and they let him do that. But when a new man comes in, they go back to their old ways. Hang on, who is this guy?
Yeah.
He's going to be spending our money.
Yeah,
businessmen don't like that.
No, and of course. The story has got progressively worse through Van Gaal, no good.
Yeah.
Mourinho, problem. And I think Mourinho's busted flush now. He's talking now about managing at international level. The story since post-Ferguson has been really failure, and progressively it's getting worse. And also, I don't know if you agree with me, but very bad decision making. This brings us to Solskjaer.
Yeah.
You know, after Mourinho, what do you do? And first, it isn't just a question of appointing a new coach. You've got to also say, what kind of club are we? Are we going to go and contest with Barcelona, Real Madrid, the big spenders, Chelsea? Are we going to go for the very best players? And they don't appear to have made any decision except to try Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in a caretaker role on trial with what they had.
Yeah. Well, I think what we see, Eamon, in my opinion, anyway, all the time, it's the idea was we go back to Alex Ferguson's time.
Yes.
Right, that seemed to be the thing. Solskjaer's coming in as the guy that can put his arm around the shoulder, bring the smile back on the place, playing the Manchester United way.
An old boy. He's an old boy of the club.
Yeah. That's been the mantra since.
We've protected traditions of the club and the way we do things and all of that.
And switch it back to the old days. Where we did what Alex Ferguson did to go on and win the league.
The problem was no Roy Keane, no Paul Scholes, no Ryan Giggs.
He was no Alex Ferguson.
No.
That was the big thing, Eamon. And what we read was, well, he got the results early on, as we know. Well, he's put a smile back on their face. He's put his arm around the shoulder. These are all the things that Ferguson didn't do, funny enough.
Yeah.
I mean, when Ferguson was famous for the hairdryer.
Yes.
And the hairdryer was giving the lads a right bollocking after a match. I never saw Ferguson with a smile on his face. No. Very, very seldom. So we're going back to a time where they were successful.
Yeah.
Right? Where, of course, Ferguson had a smile on his face when he was holding up the European Cup and the FA Cup and the league year after year after year.
Yeah.
Of course, there were smiles on the face. But that was done through hard work.
Yes.
In getting the team to be successful. Now they're bringing back the staff. The staff seem to be, Phelan and Carrick and a group that was there in Alex Ferguson's day. So now we can recreate the Alex Ferguson time.
Yes.
Now, when Ferguson was manager, Eamon, the people he had around him had little or no say on what actually happened. He was a dictator, as all great managers are dictators.
Yes.
So now we're in a position now where after a while, because it was when Solskjaer came in, after Mourinho, he was the ideal man for the job to get them back playing to a certain level, which was quite good. You
have to say he had a run of fixtures in 2 or 3 months when he came in. They had a run of games against the lesser lights in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But you have to also say, I'm interested if you agree with me, you have to also say that there were players. Marcus Rashford was one in particular. Lingard he brought in. There were players who improved. Jones, Smalling at the back. They're not really good enough to play for a championship aspirant team. But they were more comfortable. They were happier.
Yeah.
They were a bit better organised. And certainly the attacking players seemed to be more liberated.
Yeah, I think it was an overall situation. I mean, when you get a Mourinho in the club at that particular time,
yeah,
and Mourinho couldn't handle the players not winning matches, so he turned on them in a way that he shouldn't. It was bad management actually from yes. Mourinho, in my opinion, because he humiliated players publicly, maybe 7 or 8 of them. And as they say, he lost the dressing room.
Yeah.
I think he ruined the confidence of Rashford and some of the younger players as well, because I think Mourinho's way of management was unique in that when he won, it was all about him. When he was losing, it had nothing to do with him. So therefore, he's going to upset the players, which he did. Now, after that particular time, they had a very difficult time with Mourinho. It's who comes in after that.
Yes.
And who comes in after that is Solskjaer. So any time you see an appointment of a manager, the situation has to be suitable to the personality and the temperament of the manager coming in. It has to be the right time at the right place. Solskjaer was the ideal man to come in,
yes.
because now they did need a bit of comfort, arm around the shoulder, and they also had to prove, and as players do, that the manager that has just gone was wrong and we were right. That lasted for a certain period of time, but he was the ideal man for that. But what Solskjaer did, as we knew, he put Carrick in, and he went back to the Ferguson way 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But that was the insubstantial way that Ferguson worked.
Of course. Now, a key figure in this conversation, this part of the conversation, John, is Paul Pogba. Because they paid 105 million euros for Paul Pogba from Juventus. The highest priced player in the world when they bought him. When the number of questions arise, who bought him? And before we get to who bought him, I think it's important to say that Alex Ferguson, Paul Pogba had been a young player at Old Trafford. Alex Ferguson let him go for a couple of 100,000 to Juventus. Now, then he comes back as the world's most expensive player. That was a critical decision. Did Mourinho buy him? Question number one. Did Ed Woodward, the chief executive, who is a very powerful figure in the club and remains a powerful figure, did he buy him? And why on earth would you pay 105 million euros for a player that Alex Ferguson let go for a few $100,000?
Well, I think I can understand paying the type of money for a player that a manager let go for 4 or 5 years before that. I can understand it if it was Messi. Yeah. If Alex Ferguson made a mistake and let Messi go, definitely no problem about that. I think my theory on it, Eamon, is that Woodward hadn't got a player in for Manchester United. He was after loads of players. He didn't get any of them. I think this was a Woodward buy. It
was a statement signing.
Yeah.
What they call a statement signing. And we can compete for the best and the most expensive players in the world.
Yeah, that's his job. He's looking after himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't care whether he's going to be the best player in the world or not. He is to the public and to the Manchester United support doing his job. I'm getting what's considered to be one of the best players in the world in for Manchester United. And I've beaten Barcelona and Real Madrid for his signature.
That was the story at the time. Okay.
Now let me just finish on that. Now where this started with the thing that Manchester United's demise over Mourinho, in my opinion, is that Mourinho, when he played we watched him playing for France, and I never thought he was the world's best player, but when he bought him, I think Mourinho at that time went along with Woodward.
Yeah.
Right? He had to back him up on it. And he did say, Mourinho, this is the complete midfield player.
Yes.
Right. Now, Mourinho knows his stuff. I know he's had a bad time, but he really is a pro in what he's doing. I could never imagine for a second, even at that time, because we watched Pogba in the European Championships.
At that time, yeah.
At that time. And in my opinion, Mourinho knows his stuff. And there's no way, in my opinion, that Mourinho believed that this is the complete midfield player. No. I don't think he believed it. I think he had to go along with this particular signing.
Statement signing,
because It was a statement.
That was a critical moment, though.
Yeah, that was a critical moment for Manchester United and Mourinho.
Yes.
Because what happened eventually, Pogba proved that he wasn't the complete midfield player, right? Because when Pogba played for Juventus, he played on the left side of midfield with a great midfield player in Pirlo, who could get the ball out to him and dictate the game, and then Pogba could do what he was good at.
Juventus were by far the best team in Serie A, so the demands were
different. Well, the demands were different. I mean, you see, Pirlo, what Manchester United needed at the time was Pirlo.
Yes.
Yeah. Not Pogba. Yeah. Pogba was to do what Pirlo did.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. He's not capable of doing that. So over the period of time, when Mourinho goes along with that initially, then Pogba's not doing his stuff. Results are poor. Mourinho is now suffering. So Mourinho, being Mourinho, turns on Pogba.
Yeah.
Right. And starts humiliating him publicly, which again was bad management.
Yes.
Right? So he walked into it himself, having committed himself. I don't think he'd ever committed himself, Mourinho, on a player to go along with the chairman or anybody else to say he was a complete midfielder.
I mean, it was a piece of marketing wizardry, what Woodward would have said. We're showing the world of football and our fans hugely, and the fan base stretches right around the world. This is why they are the world's richest club above Real Madrid now. The fan base is all around the world. We're showing that we're big time, and this is a big time club.
I don't think it was we're showing. I'm showing.
Okay, I'm showing.
It was his job. This is very important, Eamon, because it wasn't a collective thing at Manchester United. I don't think he consulted Mourinho to say, look, do you think we should buy this?
I'd be very interested to know what Alex Ferguson was thinking.
Well, I think Ferguson was out of it at that stage.
Yeah.
I think honestly, if Woodward had, once Ferguson was gone, Eamon, he was gone. Yeah. Particularly after the Moyes situation, there was no way that Woodward was going to Ferguson to say, what do you think of Pogba? No way.
Right.
He was out of it. This is my gig. This is what I'm going to show everybody. This is the most expensive player in the world, and I'm doing it because I've been rubbish at signing all the other players. Mourinho, what do you think of that? You know, you have to go along with this because this is what we need to do. And
so that's where you identify, and I agree with you, that's where Mourinho lost his soul.
Yes.
And really, when you give that up, you give a lot of your authority up.
Well, he gave all of it up in the end because Mourinho, being Mourinho, Eamon, knew he'd made a mistake.
Yeah.
Right. But he can't publicly say, I've made a mistake on that. So what he did then was publicly humiliate Pogba. But once the results went against him, against Mourinho, he's thinking, I'm not going to stand for this. And this guy who's playing here is supposed to be the best player in the world. And I'm going to show everybody that I don't believe he's the best player in the world. So, and then that goes through the whole club then.
Worth pointing out in relation to that transaction, that Raiola, who is Pogba's agent, pretty notorious character in many ways, he's also the agent of De Ligt, this young Dutch centre-half who can't make his mind up as we speak where he wants to go. Barcelona, Juventus, they're all offering money. He's being accused of being greedy, but I would say the agent made 30 million out of the transaction. Of that 105 million, he got 30 million because there were various clauses in a contract that Pogba signed initially from Juventus when he went from United. So it was a lucrative deal for the agent, for Pogba to come back triumphantly, but a disaster for Mourinho's authority. We agree. Now the question I want to ask you is, because I'm sure, and I'll give you my own opinion first. I think Pogba was a very average player. I know that Didier Deschamps, the French head coach, won the World Cup. This guy was in the team. He preferred him in the team to Kante, a great little player, Chelsea.
I don't think he did do it him, not in the World Cup.
No, he preferred him in the team to Kante in the European Championships and frequently preferred him to Kante. But Kante played in the World Cup. Yeah. But the point I'm making is this. Even in the World Cup, when Pogba was said to have played, he was okay. He played okay. He didn't win matches and he didn't really determine games in a way that a top player would. He was. When I see him play for United, I think that he's so limited. When I saw him play for France, I didn't notice his limitations. Now that's down to Deschamps. What did you think?
Well,
I wanted to lay down that marker because I've been stronger on him than you.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you've been stronger on him.
No, what I mean is against him.
Well, I
don't rate him.
Well, anyway, we won't.
Well, it's important. How good is he?
Well, let me go back to you. You made a long statement there about him in the World Cup. In the World Cup with France, which was a different situation altogether, I think up to the semi-final, he didn't play well at all. In the semi-final, he played like a pro.
Yeah.
In the final, he played like a pro.
Yeah.
Right. There's no doubt in his ability. He has a lot of ability. It's the way he uses ability or doesn't use it in certain situations. Actually, I don't know why, but in the World Cup in the semi-final, he actually did play well. He defended well. He did all the things that you would expect a top player to do. And he did so in the final as well. He played very well. Now, they're two occasions. They're the only two occasions I've seen him play as a pro.
Yes.
Right. And you have to go back to with Mourinho and the situation. They signed him as the complete midfield player.
Yeah.
Now, he'll never be the complete midfield player. He'll never be a Pirlo. He can't dictate. He's no positional sense when he's playing. When you're playing in the middle of the field, the positional sense is 90% of the job.
Yes.
He doesn't have any positional sense. He does have ability. He can control the ball. He can hit a long pass. He can score a few goals. So you'd have to leave him, as Solskjaer did, funny enough, when he came back in. They did give him a free role.
Yes.
You can't give him any responsibilities. Like a big kid playing. He wants to show off.
And
he
wants
25.
to do a few
tricks.
He's far from a kid.
Well, I'm saying he's
no,
he
but I'm saying
like
it's worth saying.
He should be developing into one of the great players. He's not one of the great players. No. Not by any. He's a very talented guy I describe him as a social media star.
Yeah.
Right. In his head, that's all he's worried about, Eamon. In the game, when I was told when I was a kid, let it go simple, let it go quick. The last thing he does in the position that he's in is let it go. He wants to do a trick first.
Yes.
In other words, he's got a tricky mind. Yes. But this guy is in a different world to us, Eamon. This is a different era to our time. He's a social media star.
Well, now, on that, we don't agree. I think these guys on their generation, they're all on social media. An awful lot of them are on social media. That's what they do. That's how they relate to their fans. It doesn't stop them being top players.
No, hang on. You're not getting it right here. I'm talking about Pogba. I'm not talking about the other lads who go on social media. Yeah. I know it's a modern day. And the lads go on social media and they play well and they go and behave themselves. They don't see themselves as social media stars.
Yeah,
they're professional footballers. But Pogba sees himself primarily as a social media star and secondly as a player. Yeah. Because he's got about 10 million followers on the thing. He's making a fortune from doing that.
Yes.
And you can see the way he plays. He'd rather do a trick than do something, something that's right at the particular time. He is a talented guy, but he's not the complete midfielder. Never will be. In fact, he can be a nuisance on the pitch in the way that he thinks he should be playing the game.
And he's certainly not going to be a leader. And he's not a player you can build a team around.
It's the last thing. Like you talk about Pogba. I first of all, I would never have signed him. Mm. And if I was manager now, I couldn't wait to get him out of the place.
Yeah.
I think you cannot build a team, in my opinion, around a guy or supposedly around a guy like that or having a guy like him in the team.
No. And even in the dressing room, in a way. Yeah, although
Mourinho couldn't stand him in the dressing room, apparently. No, he was doing the music and he's dancing around. He's like a big kid.
There's no reason to believe he's a bad lad. All the things I see about him, I think he's probably a very good lad to go out with and have a, and
he's having a laugh and he wants to laugh and a joke and everything. That's the way he sees his life. And he doesn't see and have the responsibility of great players. He doesn't need, he thinks he doesn't need them. I do what I do. It's financially, he's making a fortune. He's making a fortune on these things. These are all issues in it that makes him what we don't know him, Eamon, but we only can see him from the outside. One thing we do know, he's not a great footballer.
No, but he's a valuable piece of merchandise, funny enough, from the marketing perspective and the sure selling perspective and all of that. Now, we come to the present and his sort of central role in the Manchester United, in Gunnar Solskjaer's head, because he says, and his agent is clearly encouraging him to say, that he wants to go to Real Madrid. Real Madrid are saying they want to buy him. They want to pay 135, somewhere between 135 and 150 million. Juventus, his old club, also want him to go back. He says in public that he'd love to go back to Juventus. One week he says that because he wants to play with Ronaldo. Then another week he says, no, I think it's Real Madrid. I really admire Zidane, who's of course a Frenchman, and now the newly installed coach at Real Madrid, having won 3 Champions Leagues with them. Now, he is at the moment, for the future of Manchester United, for the future of Solskjaer's credibility as a coach, he is someone who's absolutely out of control. That's got to be deadly. Has it not?
Well, it's the worst.
Right now, this is July 1st. They start pre-season training at Old Trafford today. And here is the most expensive player that they've got, the biggest star, quote unquote, and he's acting the maggot.
Well, he's the one that shows what a mess Manchester United are in. If a club is run properly, this type of thing doesn't happen.
Right.
Because again, if you go back to Ferguson's time, right, which you have to go back to when a club was run properly and he was in charge of the situation. You know, forget the fact that he'd let him go as a young one. If he was behaving the way he's behaved and played the way he's behaved, first of all, he'd be gone. But Ferguson couldn't wait to get him out of the club now.
Ditto Conte or Pochettino or Guardiola or any of the big Klopp, any of those definitely top guys.
But it's shown, the situation is shown through Pogba, it's mainly through Pogba, what a mess it's in.
And it's not getting any better.
It's getting worse. Right. You see, if you look at, you have to go back to Ferguson's time to know when the club was run properly, and he ran the club. Yeah, right. There's no doubt about that. Now, at the moment, and all that's happened in the close season and before, forget about before, just the close season itself, where we got Pogba and the close season. If you go back to Ferguson's time, all the work that needed to be done was done in the first 2 weeks after the season finished. Yeah. Who went out, who did he get in? He knew exactly what he wanted and he had the power to do it. Now, we got to a stage now where, as you say, there's 2 weeks to go before the season starts again. And nothing has happened at Old Trafford. All I hear is the Solskjaer's on his holidays. Yeah. So he's not in control of the situation.
He's back today, and here are the list of things that would be on his to-do list. Sort out Pogba. Lukaku can't make his mind up. And he's supposed to be going to Inter.
And can I just interrupt you? I understand what you're saying. It's 2 weeks to the end of the season. You know the problems that needs to be sorted out. Wait, they should have been sorted out immediately the season finished.
But I just want to list out where he is now. Pre-season starts today. They go on a world tour to Australia and the Far East, America, Far East, wherever it is, in 2 weeks' time. Lukaku, the Sanchez situation is not yet resolved, and he has taken out 140 million, or will, if his contract runs out, in wages from Manchester United. So now they've come out with a new policy, and the new policy, leaving aside all the unresolved questions that are there as they turn up for the pre-season this morning, they have signed a couple of new players. One of them is Aaron Wan-Bissaka, right back, Crystal Palace last year, very promising young footballer, 21 years of age. They paid 50 million for him, and there'll be add-ons to that. He's a full-back. They've signed a lad called Daniel James from Swansea. Again, they paid 18 million for him. He's played 31 times in the league for Swansea, but he's a lad who's sort of promising, they say, and they also want to sign a player I think we both agree is a good player, Sean Longstaff. He's 21. He's at Newcastle. He's only played 8 league games. One of them was against Manchester City. He was outstanding. Looks a very young...
he's a good player, yeah.
Very
good, yeah.
young and promising midfield player. They want to pay 25 million. But the plan, as laid out now by Woodward and by Manchester United, is We're not going to be signing big checks for marquee players. We're not going to be Real Madrid light anymore. We're not going to be going into the market at that level. We're going to get young players, enthusiastic, keen, and we're not going to try to be Manchester City or Liverpool. We're going to do it another way.
Loads of clubs have tried that before, Eamon.
Yeah.
That's called the businessman's way.
Yeah.
Get young players in, their fees will increase and all that, which is nonsense. But you go back to that. Where is Solskjaer in this?
That's the big question. Where is he in anything? Is he influencing Pogba's situation? Is he making
He's not. They've no manager, Eamon. They've no manager. He's not involved in any of that. Again, they keep going back. We've got to go back to the Manchester United way. We've got to go back to the Ferguson way. They're doing everything but that.
Yeah.
They don't have a manager. Solskjaer's the boy.
Yeah.
And he's no influence. He's been on his holidays. He hasn't been mentioned. All I see is Woodward talking about Rio Ferdinand, bringing him to put him on as a director of football. All these things are all around the club, except the things that matter, which is a manager to do the job that needs to be done and go back to Ferguson's way, right enough. I agree with that. That's the last thing they're doing. But not anything but that.
On the question of the director of football, that's been hanging around the club for the last 6-8 weeks. And Rio Ferdinand's name has been mentioned. Now, the latest spin on that is that Ed Woodward has decided he's going to be his own director of football. Now, Ed is an accountant. He's been there since 2005 when the Glazers came. He advised the Glazers on the takeover of the club successfully. He started off in the commercial department, doing a bit of the communication stuff, which is basically marketing or promoting the club. He's now the chief executive. He appears to be the most important person at Manchester United by a mile.
Yeah, for a good while. He's the one that's in charge, Eamon, now. And he's the last person that should be in charge. That's what's called a mess. That's why they're in the mess. Because what's he saying? I'm the man. Solskjaer is only the manager or the coach. They're not even the manager.
Coach,
it's the coach. You look after the team. I look after all these things that happen, the big things, like spending money on our policy. I've seen the policy loads of times, Eamon, in football. And he's an accountant and he's a businessman. Businessman when they're running the business. Don't be signing anybody at 30 and there's no resale.
Value.
We get the young. I've seen this so many times. Get the young fellas in. There's a resale on them. The 30-year-old, maybe 2 30-year-olds who are really top class players are the players that are going to make the difference in the club.
Yeah.
But that's an accountant's way of managing the club.
Well, one of the ways, one of the decisions they made was to send 8 scouts to the European Under-21 Championships, which just ended last night. Actually, Spain, I think, beat Germany in the final. They were looking for you. This is the new Manchester United way now, to look for young players, to buy them on spec. I mean, this lad Daniel James from Swansea, he scored a spectacular goal last season. Against Brentford, actually. He ran 84 yards, took the ball in the back of the net, and the whole operation took 8.48 seconds. Now,
it goes back to the principle. Who is picking the players?
Well, John, I have to say this on that. No club now, I mean, Daniel Levy at Spurs, for example, to take an example, but there are others. I mean, at Liverpool now, Klopp is part of a committee. There's a guy called Edwards there, who's the guy who's making decisions, big decisions too, about the signing. Everywhere, if you look at...
Klopp didn't say that, Eamon. Klopp said publicly he was in charge of the same, because that was the objection when Rodgers was there. There was a committee of 6.
There's still a committee there. There's still a group of people. There's 5 people, and Klopp is one of them. And they collectively arrive at decisions as far as we know. That's what they publicly said. But the point I was going to make to you was that there isn't a club that I can think of, a major club now. Chelsea would be a good example. I don't think Antonio Conte, who came there and won the league in his first season and did a great job, he wasn't making the signings. I think the other, Abramovich, would have made calls there. We know that down through the years. At Real Madrid, Zidane Is Zidane, does Zidane really want Paul Pogba for 130, 150 million? I'm not sure. It could be the president there, Perez. Barcelona, same situation. Valverde, the coach, barely hung on to his own job. In fact, I sacked him on the podcast before there was rumours he was gone, but he didn't go. He's still there. Messi would have a huge say at Barcelona. So when you say, the days of coaches having the kind of control and power that, say, Alex Ferguson had, are over. Yeah. They're finished.
Yeah, I'm not doubting that. But is it right?
Well,
it doesn't matter what's happened because that's happened. The fact is, we're talking about Manchester United.
It can be right.
Hang on, let me just finish now. We're talking about Manchester. We're discussing Manchester United, particularly. Yeah. That's what's happened at Manchester United. And it's a mess.
Yes.
And it will continue to be a mess.
Yes.
I think when Conte was at, I think he had a certain amount of control over it. He got Kante in when he first went there. And I think and that's one of the reasons they got rid of him, because he was insistent on that particular control. Yes. And Abramovich didn't like it. After winning the league and the cup, I know that's part of the culture now. They don't like managers to be in charge.
Yeah.
They don't want them to be in charge. Right?
I would say also, John, it depends. I mean, this is a problem, as I see it. If I was an owner of a club now, a big club, where hundreds of millions would be involved in trading, buying and selling players and all of that, given the corruption in football, I'd be worried if I didn't have charge, if I didn't have a major input into how much we paid for a player and how much we asked for when we sold a player, because I think there's so much corruption between agents and coaches.
Well, we're on to a different subject altogether.
No, we're not. It's part of the same thing.
Well, the corruption could be stopped. It could be stopped in many ways. First of all, it's the agents that are doing all the business, and the clubs are employing the agents.
But a lot of the coaches are corrupt.
I know that, but they don't have to be dealing with the agents. We can't name names. No, but they don't have to be. I think it'd be very simple. If you're doing a deal with Pogba for with Juventus, say Woodward is doing the deal, he can talk to the top guy at Juventus and agree the deal. Where the corruption is coming in is at the top level with the agents.
Yeah.
But there's nothing stopping the Woodward to say to the guy in Juventus 100 million, or agree 100 million. He has to agree 100 million with somebody. Say, that's it, right? I'll pay you 100 grand. But this is when it's the corruption with the agents coming in. It can be stopped, but the clubs are using them themselves.
Yes, they are.
In it.
Well, so some of the owners are corrupt.
No, but the owners...
Some of the owners are corrupt. Some of the owners are corrupt.
Well, then you can't...
robbing their own clubs.
Yeah, but...
I could name half a dozen now, but we'd be off air forever.
Yeah, but you're saying, Eamon, that they won't give the manager the power to do what the owners, talking about the owners. The owners not giving the managers power to do what needs to be done because they're worried about them being corrupt.
Part of it.
Right? Well, if the owners are corrupt themselves, then what chance has anybody got?
No, but this is the modern game, John. The problem, we're talking about here, one of the great clubs in the world, the richest club in the world, one of the great clubs in the world, and you can't talk about any club now, any of the great clubs, without talking about who has the power, who can influence, who can shift and move things. And the reason it isn't one person anymore is it's too big, in my opinion. You have to move with the times. And the other reason is
it's not too big to do the playing side, Eamon. It's not too big. I know I've heard this before about that we need a director.
The corruption is the other thing, John.
Well, hang on.
We know.
Hold on. Hang on. It's not that long since Ferguson was doing the job, is it? How long is it? 4 years, 5 years since Ferguson was doing the job, right? Did he do the job properly? Did he have the power to do it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was in control of his brother was his scout.
Yes.
And he was his director of football.
Yeah.
Right? And as long as that was going on. But what the directors don't do over the years, Eamon, they don't like to give power, never did to the manager. And they found ways of doing it now, which is the director of football.
Yes.
They appoint a director of football. He is their director of football. He's not the manager's director of football. So they've got control over who they buy and who they sell.
Yes.
And the manager's left out in the cold.
Yeah.
Right?
in the worst situations. In the good situations.
But what you
for
say,
example, Guardiola, well, just let me
Yeah.
give you two examples of where it appears to be working.
Yeah.
Guardiola
Yes.
and Klopp.
Yes.
At Manchester City and Liverpool.
Yes.
Where the strong managers, there's every reason to trust them.
Yeah.
They've made good decisions
Yes.
in the past. The record stands to them.
Yeah.
But there's still, it's certainly at Liverpool and there's still at Manchester City as well, there's some collaboration. Guardiola has two guys that were at Barcelona with him, and they hold the titles of director of football or whatever.
Yes.
So there is a collaboration, but that you would think that Guardiola and Klopp will get what they feel they need.
Definitely.
And have a major influence on decisions.
I've nothing against director of football, Eamon, and somebody like Woodward has to do a job as long as he's doing the job in the budget of the thing. Like the two lads that were there at Manchester City were the directors of football for the money, and the reason they got Guardiola in because the reason Guardiola went is because he knows these guys and he can trust them to do what he wants to do. Up to a point.
Yes.
I mean, don't forget, they didn't get Sanchez because Sanchez got too expensive. So they're still in control of the situation.
Yep.
I mean, they can still be in control of the situation. But what's happening in football is they don't want to give the manager any authority.
Now,
whatsoever.
to go back, I'm sorry I sidetracked us there with talk of corruption, but we know people who have worked in the game and they weren't directors of football or owners who were corrupt.
There's no doubt about that.
Right.
There has been corruption in the game. Yeah.
Now, Manchester United I've seen the programme. We've all seen the Premier League programme. They've got a tough game to start. I think it's Chelsea in the first week. Then they got another easy-ish run. But with their present policy and the way the club is being run, with the Pogba situation unresolved and unlikely to get better, is he going, is he staying? Imagine that first day of pre-season.
And he's dictating the
and he appears to be dictating the argument, and his agent, of course. Where are they going?
They're a mess, Eamon. They can't be going anywhere. I mean, if Manchester United are successful this season, for example, then there's no such thing as a properly run club.
Yeah, they've even admitted, I mean, I think Solskjaer, everyone knows that Manchester United are not going to contend to win the Premier League this year. They just don't have the players. I mean, if they qualify for the Champions League, John, it'd be a bloody miracle.
Well, but that's their own fault, Eamon. Unless you get the structure right, then you're not going to be successful. You mentioned early on about Liverpool and Manchester City, for example. It's no coincidence that their structure is good. You're not going to, like, first of all, the manager, Manchester United, has no authority whatsoever. Woodward is the one that's doing it.
Yes.
And he's getting players in now. And it's happened, I've seen it so happen many times with business people, and they approach the football in the business way. And I have nothing against approaching the business way, but what they approach is, we buy young players in. There's a resale players on them. What's the manager's situation? Like Solskjaer's he's not in it.
But the bottom line with Manchester United is this, John, in my opinion. They are the richest club in the world because of the fan base and their sales of memorabilia and all kinds of stuff, jerseys, whatever you want. And they generate enormous sums of money. But when it comes to buying the best players in the world and going out and competing for them, they're not in that ball game. They have declared themselves out of it. We are not going to be signing big checks. We tried that; it hasn't worked. And I mean,
what they haven't tried, Eamon, is to do it in the right way.
Yeah.
If they've wasted money, but it's their own fault for wasting money. When they had the manager doing the stuff on the Ferguson, they made millions and millions and millions, which brought them to the club today. Ferguson didn't spend any more money than anybody else, but he was in charge of buying him. He bought players, older players at the right time. He bought the younger players. He brought young players through. It was a club that was well managed.
Yeah, just in terms of, for nostalgic reasons, Manchester United fans, Eden Hazard is the biggest transfer that's gone through this summer. Left Chelsea, went to Real Madrid for 140 million. There might have been a day in the past when Manchester United was a great club where they would have been in for Hazard He's the kind of player who can transform a club.
But they're still a great club. They're still a great club. Of course, they're a great club. But they're talking about the time when Ferguson would have spent 140 million on them. Their attitude today, where they're not actually a great club, is because they're run in a different situation altogether, where Woodward and the owners are looking at the financial side of it and investment side of it. So they wouldn't buy a Hazard today.
No.
Ferguson would have bought a Hazard in his day and knows that he got a good return on it. What these guys are trying to do in the business way is buy the young players in and they have a resale, right? Solskjaer's not in charge of that. He's nowhere near it. He's nothing to say on it. That's when a club is badly run. That's when it's a mess. And Manchester United are a mess. In the meantime, you look across the road, Manchester City doing what they've got directors of football.
Yes.
But there's an agreement, definitely an agreement between Guardiola and them before he came in, because unless you give me these powers,
right,
I won't be here. And Klopp is the same.
Yep.
And they just happen to be the two most successful clubs in the country, in the Premiership at the moment. And Manchester United are nowhere near them. And also what will happen to Eamon as well, that the wealth that they have done produced up with Ferguson will diminish.
Yeah.
Because the kids will turn on to Manchester City and Liverpool and other clubs to buy their jerseys. So ultimately, it's a loss all the way. And it's what's called a badly run club. Woodward is at the
centre
helm of this, along with the owners. This is a policy they decided to pursue, and I can see nothing but failure by their standards in this particular way.
No, I totally agree with you. Okay, John, that was a fascinating conversation. It's a pity the laws of libel exist. You could mention some of these corrupt fellows, but it does exist. So I'd like to thank John Giles.